Today's activity on the floor, we followed the state's constitution to the fullest extent. The only thing that we could do constitutionally today was seat the two members of the House of Representatives and also to first read the bills that have the legislation that's been filed. Tomorrow will be second reading. We can take up some committee work in JCAB tomorrow, and we can, anything introduced to the floor will be in second reading. We will not take any floor votes until Wednesday. That is the earliest possible time that the legislature can vote on measures on the floor of the House of Representatives, and that is prescribed in our state's constitution. What we're excited about, first and foremost, is teacher pay. The House of Representatives passed a teacher pay raise plan last session, the 123 plan, which is a $6,000 teacher pay raise plan. We sent it to the Senate. It still resides over there. We voted on that more than 3 times and included it in our budget proposal, the first $1,000 in House Bill 2400 last session. The Senate did not pass that version of the budget, but this is something that is a priority. It remains a priority for the House of Representatives. So that is our first. We are excited that the governor included that in her call, and we are very excited that the governor is supportive of the teacher pay raise. The House has constantly and on multiple occasions said that teacher pay raise, the people in the state of Oklahoma are telling us they want to see that happen. And we are excited about the possibilities of seeing that happen during this special session to get at least partially a partial teacher pay raise towards that $6,000 goal kicked off and started through this session, rather than having to come back in February and wait on the Senate to move the bill through that we sent them last session. The cigarette tax will be a focus of our work this week in the House of Representatives. This was the underlying issue of why we are here for special session this week. As you know, the House passed a tobacco cessation fee last session that was challenged in the Supreme Court. The court overturned that, which created a $215 million hole in the current budget. And we are here to address that as well. We believe the simplest, most effective way to address that is by putting back up the cigarette tax at $1.50 per pack. This will create the revenue created by the gap by the courts. It will fix the budget issue that we have. We will not be able to collect a full year's revenue on that at this time, but we certainly do have about $85 million in carryover funds from last year, and we have access to the rainy day fund. The cigarette tax, another reason we are focusing on this as a primary purpose for fixing the gap with health care. The $215 million gap that's created only affects 3 agencies in the state of Oklahoma. So we need to run the cigarette tax. We need to pass that directly through our chamber in order to fix that gap for those 3 health care agencies. DHS, Oklahoma Healthcare Authority, and the Department of Mental Health. They are going to bear the brunt, currently, are bearing the brunt of the loss of that $215 million. The cigarette tax is just simply has wide support from the people in the state of Oklahoma. Over 60% of Republicans and Democrats in the state of Oklahoma support a $1.50 per pack increase on cigarettes. For the Republicans, the polling shows 61%. For Democrats, 65% statewide support this. It has broad support. It makes sense to move this through our chamber. Last session, the Republicans delivered 75% of our caucus. We are calling on the Democrats to deliver 75% of their caucus. We're not asking for all of their members to support this. All we're asking for is a bipartisan approach. If they provide 75% of their caucus as we provide 75% of ours, this measure will pass the House of Representatives and will move on to the Senate for passage. and we will put this to a vote. We plan to put this to a vote this week in the House of Representatives in the first week of this special session. Keep in mind, the House of Representatives is committed to a teacher pay raise plan. That is, and we feel like it should have, the first $1,000 of that should have been acted in the last legislative session. And that was our intent. That's what we took the votes on, and that's what we passed. Once again, we will fight for the teacher pay raise again in this special session. Last session, House Bill 2429, we increased the largest group of producing wells in the state of Oklahoma that are currently at 7%. The largest group, 5,790 wells. We moved that rate from 1% to 4% last session. It put $100 million in the budget. There were no Democratic votes for it. Zero. Nobody in the House Democrats voted for that. The Republicans passed that with just our votes only. So there's nothing out there that we're not considering. We are looking at the reality of the situation. If nobody wants to get serious on the cigarette tax, what they're really saying is we're not serious about anything. If the cigarettes, if this passes, then we've got a lot more options to fully close the gap. There are other things to be considered. We're looking at efficiencies. We're looking at tax reform measures. There's a lot of possibilities, but those don't get us there without this. We raised GPT last session to the tune, we hit oil and gas $150 million just a few months ago. We hit them the previous year $110 million on the marginal well.
We are in negotiations right now. When I leave here, I'm going to go back to negotiations with the governor and the Senate. We are still talking about those things. I know the governor is still in contact with Leader Inman on negotiations. The goal is to find a permanent solution that will work. As the Speaker said, we will be putting the cigarette tax up for a vote this week, either Wednesday or Thursday. It is my intention that bill will pass, and that is the plan. Leader Inman certainly has signaled that he has unleashed his caucus. He said this at a press release about a week ago, that he has unleashed his caucus and they can vote their conscience on that. I was excited to hear that. I understand he had a press conference today. I didn't see it. I don't know if anything's changed, but I'm hoping that's still the case, and I'm hoping we can put that on the board, get it passed, and move forward. It's the intention of the House to move deliberately. We are only going to meet on days, well, there were many bills that were filed. We are only going to meet on days that we are considering bills that deal with the budget. If there are other bills dealing with the call that can be heard during those days, it is possible they will be heard, but we will not be coming in and having a day of special session to have a non-budget related bill day. The reality of the situation is we have raised gross production tax, and one of the things that's a little concerning is if we really do have a concern for what happens to the industry, which, by the way, I do believe Leader Inman does. I believe every member here does have a concern for what happens to the industry. When we raise taxes by $110, $150 million on an industry, why are no positions moving one way or another? Ladies and gentlemen, here's the reality. 5% is a poison pill. We do not have 5%. We do not have the votes in the Republican caucus to get to 5%. Gross production tax absolutely is on the table. At 5%, that's not something that can be done. When you're talking about how high-income earners, Leader Inman's current definition of high-income earners is $80,000 a year. No, that is not on the table for the House Republican caucus. We do not want to raise taxes only on those who make $80,000 a year and call that high-income earners. We do not want to do that. We want to come up with other options. And you are going to see Republicans who, as they have done, as they did last session and they will do this session, continue to vote for targeted revenue increases and continue as the House side to champion, as they have done, to find a way to fund the teacher pay raise.